welcome to another episode of the Let's Talk Marvel Fan Theories podcast. Today we will be doing the much-awaited Shang-Chi predictions episode where we break down our thoughts and some of the theories that we've been seeing online related to the movie and kind of what we expect, since we will be 2 weeks out from the actual premiere, which is so exciting.
I still have to get my tickets. Don't let me forget to do that tonight.
To be fair, they just came out 2 days ago.
Yeah, that's very true. Well,
wait.
We'll
get into that.
Before I have my bone to pick with Marvel, I just want to let everyone know we're going to use some nice ambiance. Is that the right way to say that?
It's ambiance, not ambiance.
I was like, wait a second.
It's like omnivore plus something else.
Yeah, you know what? The spelling in my head was not what I thought. Because we are currently at the beach, and so you can, I don't know, maybe hear the waves crashing. We've got some crickets outside.
If it's too loud, it will be edited out, so maybe you can't
hear
it
at all. Possibly won't be able to hear it, but we can hear it, and the nice breeze and the palmettos. Yeah, we're chilling, but you guys might not be. I don't know. I mean, okay, you know me, I'll get heated for any reason. Let's get right into the reason I'm heated. That has to do with Shang-Chi. Marvel has failed miserably to market this.
I agree.
I'm very disappointed. I'm not going to be the person to talk on behalf of issues that I don't have a proper voice to, but I do feel very bad to the entire Asian community because I know this comes into a lot of issue that they're feeling, and I sympathize and I hear you. So I want to say that.
And I think both of us, the one place of credibility we both do have when it relates to this movie is that we both do study and or have studied marketing. So from a purely disciplinary standpoint, I think we were both kind of surprised by the lack of effort put behind it in that sense, and it kind of stood out to both of us.
Yeah.
You know, there hasn't been a lot of buzz on social from Marvel. There have not been a lot of trailers. Quite frankly, we haven't been watching a lot of live TV recently, but the live TV I have caught, I don't really feel like there have been a lot of trailers. I just feel like in comparison with some of the other properties they've put out this year, which have been television shows, even, Black Widow, which is the only other movie that you can compare to.
The only reason I won't bring in Black Widow to this is because we waited a year and a half for it.
True.
So I think, unfortunately, for that one, that's a very different story because it was already a movie that was featuring someone who was dead in our universe, and it was a whole thing already because people were not happy that she was finally getting a movie, and then post-death, pretty much. I definitely think that we can't even compare it to Black Widow, unfortunately, due to that just being a whole different circumstance, but I will say, to your point, from a marketing standpoint, it's very disappointing, and like I said, I call out to everyone in the Asian community because I feel the pain that I know you guys are all, because someone from that marketing standpoint, I'm like, this sucks.
It's clear that the effort was not put behind this property as some of the other properties.
Well, and I wonder, does that have a problem also with they're doing too much at once? Mm-hmm. Because now they have What If that's been premiering. Now this would have been the second episode.
Well, and something I pointed out to you today was, they just dropped this Entertainment Weekly
of the Eternals.
They did a whole, and they do this for every property. They did it for Shang-Chi, they did it for Loki, they did it, for all of their properties. Yeah. But to drop an Entertainment Weekly spread in the middle of your 2-week push before a major movie, and the first movie you're not dropping on Disney Plus since the pandemic, that seems like you're just sucking the air out of an already tight room.
Well, and to your point, they're not airing it on Disney Plus, which I know was also a whole thing that I believe, and I don't want to butcher his name, so I'm not going to say it, but the lead of Shang-Chi even was said that they're not an experiment to figure out how will it work to see it just in theaters?
Yeah.
Because that to me speaks Marvel's word too much about budget.
Yeah.
And about making money, and that is not what I think the experience is about.
No, it should be about the fans and the love that the fans have for these characters and these properties and the universe as a whole. I mean, I think, yes, there are trolls within the universe, there are trolls within every universe, but on the whole, Marvel fans love this universe.
Yeah.
We don't analyze it to the nth degree and criticize it because we don't love it. We criticize it and we analyze
because we expect certain things
because
from
we do love it, and you can't not, you can't pretend that something's perfect even if you love it if it's not. You're going to analyze it and say this is how I would do it better.
Yeah.
And so that's just our little soapbox about kind of what's going on with Shang-Chi.
And I think it needed to be addressed, especially in this podcast, because I know much has been being said on the internet. I know even on our Twitter, I've been trying to share some of the even some of the fans who are maybe a part of the Asian community who have been saying this sucks what you're doing, and I've been trying to share that message because, like I said early on, it is not our place to have a voice on that, but I'm trying to share the people who do have a place, and I'm trying to share what they have to say. So I know it's just been something that I think needs to be addressed prior to going into anything with the actual movie, because it's been a big thing happening, unfortunately.
Yeah, and of course we want this movie to do incredibly well.
I'm so excited.
I think it's going to be such an amazing, like, I could see this being, you know how the MC, I don't know if you view it this way, but I feel like in some ways the MCU is like before Black Panther and after Black Panther, like everything changed. Like, I don't know if you feel that way.
I don't view it that way at all, but keep going.
For me, there was, I think because of not only like the fan acclaim that Black Panther got, but the fact that it was nominated for an Oscar, you know, and the fact
now
that
look at how WandaVision's been so successful.
Right. And I just think, and it was especially made sweeter because it was such a production that so highly featured people of color in every role imaginable. It was such a sweet moment, I think, and I think Shang-Chi has the ability to do that for the Asian community, and so I'm really hoping that we see another Black Panther level of moment where you're elevating,
and you know what?
That community.
Yes. Sorry. I got excited. You know what? You brought me right into my favorite point that I've been making, is that while as much as we miss Chadwick and with his anniversary coming up, it's very painful, and we adore him. I mean, there will never be another real Black Panther.
No.
That is him. But he was supposed to be really one of the big three that was leading us into the next phases of the Marvel universe. And unfortunately, to my point before, there won't be another Black Panther the way that we saw it, and it would be inappropriate.
Yes, I mean, he
continue his character.
The way he embodied that character, it would be disrespectful to his memory, and I'm proud of Marvel for not even considering it.
Oh, I am too.
For letting him hold that, like, for letting him be the king for the rest of eternity.
Well,
the way he deserves to
exactly. And I think because he was going to be such a prominent role leading into Phase 4, I think, obviously, like, you can't undo it. It's not like you can bring, unfortunately, someone back. Like,
it wasn't an on-screen death. Yeah. You know, in every way, I wish it was. Yeah. You know, truly.
Well, exactly. So I truly think that Shang-Chi is going to take up that mantle, and I'm a strong believer of that. And I like that would be the path because of, to your point, with everything that Black Panther did for the African-American community, I think Shang-Chi has the potential to do that for the Asian community, and then we really see such a prominent lead within I want to say the next big three, really. That to me is really important, and I really, that's my biggest theory coming out of all this, is that as a whole, he will lead us through the next phase and the next couple phases of the Marvel universe.
And just to round out that big three, then I think we both agree it's going to be, you know, Peter and then Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
You know, just
unfortunately, because I think Wanda is kind of going to be more on the villainous side of things.
That leaves Strange kind of on the bubble, which is weird to me because I think he's meant to be that too. So
I'm wondering if Peter won't be fully considered it just because
of the age.
That, and he's also kind of a questionable character because he's still controlled partially by Sony.
Yeah, that's true, because you don't know that you have the rights to him for a long time.
Yeah.
Whereas Strange, you clearly do, and I don't know what Benedict's contract looks like. That's not something I follow closely.
But they can always fix that if they need to.
Yeah. And he clearly, like, has enjoyed his experience, you know. He has. I feel like they've never had a problem with him.
No.
You know, some of the actors, you know, balk at the bigger contracts. I don't think he is one of the ones who's done that. So for that reason, I could see him being in that way more contractually reliable. To your point, because he's not owned by another studio.
Yeah. But either way, moving into the actual theories of Shang-Chi, man, I don't know, because I think they've actually surprisingly kept a lot under wraps.
Yeah, I think what we've talked about a lot is the fact that, yes, they've released, I think at this point it's, you know, probably 2 or 3 full-length trailers and 1, like, teaser, I think sounds
something
about right.
There.
But one thing we both have talked about repeatedly is that they're all the same footage, cut differently and sliced differently in all of, like, they'll add, you know, maybe 1 or 2 new scenes in each one, but nothing that really gives anything away.
Right.
And it's really just, like, you see the same, like, you see the bus scene in every, you know, in every trailer. You see him fight his dad in every trailer. You see him in the cage or around that fighting cage in every trailer. You know, some it's slightly different in some of them, and we'll get into that, and we have gotten into that. There was a major bug incident just a moment ago.
I really tried not to react. I'm so sorry. It flew right at me.
But yeah, so I think they're definitely keeping it close to the vest because yes, they've released 3 or 4 trailers, but they've all been essentially the same footage, which is really difficult to piece together a potential plot.
Well, and it's also really hard when you're hearing rumors of there's a big moment, there's a big scene, and you're like, well, like a big fighting scene or like a big defining scene? Like, is it gonna really
impact? Is there a big cameo? Like,
yeah, is it gonna really impact the MCU more than like?
Because one thing, so I was watching an Easter egg breakdown of one of the trailers earlier just to prep for this episode, and something I never even thought about is that Shang-Chi has been chilling in San Francisco. That's kind of where he's been avoiding his father, and I never really thought about who else lives in San Francisco except for the video pointed out Scott Lang.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say Ant-Man.
Yeah, so it's been a while. I'm not quite there in my rewatch yet, so it's been a while since I realized that was where
I think
Scott
he's
was.
one of the only ones over there.
Yeah, I mean, out of universe, so is Venom.
Well, yeah,
which depending on how Sony plays things, that could be played into a multiverse
eventually.
later.
I mean, Tom wants it. Tom Hardy.
I'm sure Tom Holland does too.
He straight up said he wants to fight Spider-Man.
So that's, just a whole nother thing. But I thought that was interesting too. There is that potential for some Marvel cameos because, he shares a neighborhood with Scott Lang, or at least a city.
Well, and that's all the Quantumania stuff. Like, that's a whole thing. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just really an interesting thing that they put him over there in San Francisco. I'm intrigued, but I mean, like, I can understand the background of why, but I think it's interesting.
It's finally breaking free from New York. Like, I feel like everything's so
God.
New York centric, and like, as someone who has lived in New York in various points of her life, like, I love that. For me, I'm like, oh, I know that, or I'll be walking down the street and be like, hey, that's from Avengers, and like that makes me happy. But it is cool to kind of see them move to a like different geographic location. Like, I'm not, obviously Tony's in LA, but I don't. I kind of.
He was.
Yeah,
I mean, he's not anymore.
Right.
Well, and not because he's dead, but because he's not anymore.
Yeah, but I enjoy the geographic changes that they're making as well, and kind of moving people into different spots.
Okay, sorry about that, everyone. I don't know if Taylor sounded a little weird at the end there. We did have to run inside due to a bug incident.
The bug then followed us inside. I was very brave and killed it with some shoes. And then dumped it in the toilet, as one does.
We were, unfortunately, the light of the outside was attracting quite a few bugs.
It was horrifying.
We were hoping we would get through the recording and the process, but unfortunately, that did not happen.
That was not the reality of the bugs.
No. But anyway, moving on from what we were speaking about, something I think that's really important to bring up about Shang-Chi is he's in Madripoor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But not only he's in Madripoor, that means the Abomination and Wong are in Madripoor. I now really need to know this timeline.
Yeah. I feel like I saw online that they confirmed when it is.
Oh, well, I haven't seen it.
That one of the writers or directors confirmed?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not 100% sure, but either way, I'm intrigued just because obviously we see Falcon and we see the Winter Soldier and Sharon, who was kind of running the city of Madripoor as the power broker. And obviously our man Zemo, but like...
Zemo. That dancing scene continues to be one of my absolute
But also
favorites.
in Madripoor. So I just am kind of intrigued to understand, hey, like, when are these, like, taking place? Just because we've got, 3 to 4 different people who we know in Madripoor that we've been obviously confirmed because we saw the Falcon and the Winter Soldier already. And then it's like, okay, well now we also have the Abomination, Wong, and Shang-Chi in Madripoor.
Yeah.
I need to understand what's happening. I need to understand this timeline because unfortunately something I think has happened since Endgame is the timeline's been a little funky.
That is an understatement.
Yeah. No, I'm aware. But, I mean, when you put stuff in timeline order on Disney+, I mean, okay, Loki being kind of in a weird spot makes sense, because that is quite literally right after Endgame. Like, as they're finishing Endgame, Loki's going off on his little expedition.
Mm-hmm.
Black Widow was in a weird spot on the timeline, because it was technically way before half of the stuff happened.
Yeah.
But WandaVision and The Falcon and the Winter Soldier has happened after. I don't want to see another movie that has been after or before Endgame.
Agreed.
I don't think we need to be going back in time anymore. It's just to me, is a little ridiculous. So I really would like to understand that timeline just a little more.
Quick live update. I knew that I saw somewhere that they had confirmed it. So it looks like, I believe this man is the writer, this person, I'm not sure who it is exactly, but it looks like they have confirmed that Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings takes place in the present-day MCU timeline. When asked to clarify, the director confirms that the film is set in the post-blip present day of the franchise's continuity.
So, like,
it doesn't specify exactly when post-blip, but we're looking, like, probably in and around the WandaVision, Falcon Winter Soldier,
but that's what I'm intrigued about.
Yeah.
Because...
But at least we know it's not, like, between the snap and the blip.
Oh, right. And I didn't think it was, because if you look at the group of people, like, there's a lot of people on the roads and, like, in the background, so I didn't think it was. But I'm just intrigued to understand how he's in Madripoor, along, like I said, it's not even so much as Shang-Chi, because I don't think he would come up on radars quite yet, but how Abomination and Wong were in Madripoor, and
Sharon didn't have a fit, or know they were there, or have some hand in it, or, you know.
Like, the whole Ten Rings organization was also possibly, like, intertwined in Madripoor, which Madripoor obviously is a weird place. But it's like, how does this play into the Falcon and the Winter Soldier?
Yeah.
Because that was a big part of the plot.
Well, is Sharon, like, part of the Ten Rings organization? Like, as...
I don't know.
You know what I... Like, that's an entire possibility now, based on this whole setting of this little fighting ring of death.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of questions that raises, setting that ring there.
Well, I also... This is totally off topic, so I'm so sorry. But also, Trevor's coming back.
Yeah.
I want to understand how this plays into a role with the real Mandarin.
Apparently there's a short, which I didn't know.
Yeah, there is.
Called something about the king, where...
And he says you, like, took his spot or something.
Yeah, where they're an agent of the Ten Rings, and the Mandarin is like, well, he's not really pleased that you, like, pretended to be him and took his name, and, like, you know, basically, like, what's the word? We're an imposter of him.
Yeah.
So I thought that was super interesting. I didn't know that existed before I was, you know, doing some research for this. So it'll be fun to have... I just think Trevor's freaking hilarious.
Oh, I think he's hilarious, but I want to see the repercussions.
Yeah.
Because the Ten Rings organization, I think...
is brutal. They're freaking brutal.
Yes, and unfortunately, this is going to come across weird, so let me say it and then let me, like, explain it. I think it was not shown to the same degree in Iron Man what it's capable of.
I agree.
Because I think, especially with the leader wearing the 10 rings, I mean, I'm not going to go into detail with it now because I don't think I need to be the one to tell you. If you're curious, go ahead and look it up. But if you read what the 10 rings each represent, hello, like...
That's a lot of power for one man or person.
Yeah,
whoever's
a lot of
them
mystical power that...
And I agree. I think what we saw... So I think the most... prevalent that we saw the 10 rings was obviously Iron Man 1, because in 3 they're really not the 10
they're like
rings.
the fake version of it.
So yes,
the fake
they're
version
scary,
of the fake version.
and yes, they're scary, and yes, they kidnap
they're still
him,
a terrorist group and
all
all that.
And yes, they're, you know, essentially mercenaries for hire, hired by Stain. That's horrifying. Let's put that out there on the table. But that's like small potatoes in comparison to a man who can wield these 10 powers that are incredibly intense and mystical and like way beyond...
He can essentially obliterate someone.
Yeah. Like way beyond what any of us could even comprehend. You're talking the difference between regular life and something incredibly mystical that is powers beyond our... It's like Hawkeye taking on Thanos, you know?
By himself,
Thanos with the gauntlet, you know? It's just like not... You know, it's not the same. They're playing in completely different leagues. So I think we got a taste of like what it's like on the outer rings, quote unquote, of the 10 Rings organization when we saw the what I would call like the Middle Eastern cell, and like doing horrible things, don't get me wrong. But in the B League, in comparison to what the home base is doing in terms of just absolute raw power.
Well, and something that I'm really intrigued about is the hierarchy of this power. Because obviously he was Shang-Chi. Now, I believe they're following the comics and saying that he was raised by his father essentially to be an assassin.
Yeah.
He was like
That's the impression I got
a
as well.
born fighter, like that's what I understood. Now, the whole, like, spending, I don't remember how many years in San Francisco.
10 years.
That's what I thought it was.
Which is just, can I just say, it's an interesting amount of time.
No,
10
I was thinking
years.
the same thing.
Each
Each one for one of the rings.
Yeah, that, and, like, if you think 2013, what was Tony Stark doing? Like, because I guess I always just think of the 10 Rings in relation to Tony Stark, because that's where we first understood them. So, like, 2013, we're, like, post-Avengers, so that means he was still in the organization during the Avengers. Tony Stark's doing his thing where he's fighting the fake 10, actually.
Well, that's why I was about to say, I'm a little intrigued to understand he probably saw these fake 10 rings, because they were being broadcasted across TV.
Yeah, it's the same year that he left. 2013. That's when Iron Man 3 comes out. It takes place.
Yeah.
And, you know, obviously the current MCU is set in 2023, so...
And he happens to be over in California.
Yeah, I just think that's... I mean, we may be reading way too in
We
this,
might be reaching, but isn't that the whole point of theories?
Yeah, but we also may be onto something, and I don't...
Well, because that was one of the questions I was intrigued by, was why did he leave? Because, like, I was, he's escaping his father, but I'm like, but then his father comes and gets him.
Yeah.
And he goes back.
Yeah.
So I guess, like, for me, I'm like, okay. And the reason I brought up the hierarchy, because we obviously see that he has a sister.
Mm-hmm.
But his father seems, I know this could also be, depending on culture, seems to want to give everything to his son, who doesn't want it, but his daughter, who has at this point pretty much been raised through the entire organization, has never gone away, wants it.
Yeah,
so we're
I was
definitely going to
actually-
see
yeah.
that sibling, that's going to be, I think, bigger than...
Even the hatred toward the father.
Yes, because it's, you know what vibe it's given me? Gamora Nebula vibes.
Ooh, the father pitting the children against each other. I totally see
And then
that.
eventually they both end up
Even in some way,
father.
Odin. Even in some way, Odin.
Yeah, partially. Some of that was just Loki.
Okay, but
having his own issues.
A lot of it was Odin.
Yeah, but I
mean, even think about he hid an entire sibling from them, so, like,
yeah
there's some Odin in there, too.
The only thing with Odin is I just feel like not endorsing that Odin's a great father, because that's
he's
never
literally the
going-
worst.
I mean, to some degrees, I think he is very good. I just think there were some things he fell short on, and I think he was doing it indirectly versus, like, Thanos was directly doing it, making sure they were essentially
I was
hating
just
each
listing
other.
off bad dads in the MCU.
No, you're right. I mean, a lot. There's
with,
a
like,
lot.
multiple children. Because there's, like, obviously, like, Howard Stark, who's, like, questionable at best as a father, but, like, Tony was an only child.
I need more, and I know this is a little off topic, but I need more of an explanation of how Howard became Howard, because he
in the
was
70s,
so
he's
different.
like, my child, I'm so excited, I'm going to give him everything, and then you
And then
see a
he's like,
flashback
I
of
hate
him right
him.
before he died, and he's like, Tony?
Yeah, he's like, I hate this kid.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? Anyway, though, it's really giving me those vibes of the kids being pitted against each other. Gives me the vibes of once the dad's out of the way, the siblings will probably in some way have a rebuilding of a relationship. It just...
That's I think where I was getting to the Thor and Loki thing, because yes, Gamora...
Well, I was thinking Thanos, because once they realized he was kind of psychotic, and they
yes.
were like,
Yeah, I guess I'm just, like, way off in, like, Thorland over here in my brain. But, yeah, I don't know, I think we've seen a lot, like, those two are, like, the poster sibling duos of, like, hating each other because of, like, if it's not specifically the father, the environment in which they were
or
raised.
resenting each other for parts of it.
Yeah.
Because I definitely think the sister's going to resent... Actually, here's where I would definitely see the Loki and Thor comparison. I think his sister would definitely resent him, because while she did everything right, it's still falling on the person who didn't deserve it in her eyes. And that's exactly how Loki is.
Yeah.
So
I mean, think about it.
That's the
Thor
right
doesn't,
comparison.
Thor doesn't deserve it in
In the
Thor 1. That's
first
the whole
one,
point,
yeah.
you know. And arguably, Loki's actually a pretty good king in, you know. I mean, in Thor 1, even in
Ragnarok, when he's pretending to be Odin, he's
yeah,
like high
even
king.
between like Dark World and Ragnarok,
I mean, he was just as much born to be a king as Thor was.
Yeah,
but he wasn't.
But he murdered his own dad, so like.
Well, he also wasn't Odin's son. He technically wasn't the rightful heir to the throne at all.
Well, he wasn't the rightful heir to the throne of Asgard.
Well, but that's what I mean.
Jotunheim,
To Odin's throne.
Yeah.
He wasn't the rightful heir, and the one who technically was in hell.
Oh, true.
So
yeah,
that would make it Thor. But I mean, I also can see it with Gamora and Nebula. I mean, Nebula resented Gamora because Gamora got everything.
Well, she got to keep her body.
Well, and she resented her for every part of it.
Yeah.
So I see a lot of the sibling comparison. I'm getting the same vibe from them.
Mm-hmm.
I do think there's going to be a reconciliation, but at the same time, it could be a misdirection that they're making the dad seem as the biggest villain. The next thing we know, the sister's out here like, hey, bro.
Yeah, I mean, it could be like a. I mean, I guess everybody who's like familiar with the comics knew Mordo was going to end up being a bad guy, like in Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
But like, he starts off as this like mentor figure, friend figure, and then pivots. So like, I could see like her, like, it's not that he played him, he had a whole epiphany, if you will, but I could see that kind of becoming like she's the enemy, then she's the friend, then she's the enemy again. So I could see kind of her going in a Mordo direction where she just has like a real vendetta against the main character.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree, and I think it all comes down to the rings, and I think something that is very important to note is I don't know if it's the new trailer or the new, like, short that came out, but they showed the Iron Man suit, they showed the shield, and then they showed the hammer, and then last they show the rings. That is to show that these are the same, the
same
rings
level
are
of power.
And they're the equivalent.
Yeah.
They are Shang-Chi's equivalent.
And I said to you, what was interesting to me is, so many of the stars, obviously we both follow a lot of them on Instagram, many of the stars posted this with the same caption. It was like, welcome to the MCU, like, we're bringing to life, like, the legend Shang-Chi, which, like, I truthfully, like, I'm not the world's biggest fan of the comics, but I wasn't really familiar with, I've said this many times throughout the different podcasts as we've talked about, like, what's coming down the pike. I wasn't familiar, really, with this character until I started digging in preparation for this, and more trailers started coming out. So for me, for them to, like, call him a legend, like, maybe I just am uninformed, but I thought that was such an interesting choice because they're setting him up on the same pedestal as the other three by welcoming him in kind of a parallel.
Well, and not
them.
to mention, it makes me think of, I think they say it in Avengers, when Thor first makes his appearance and Nat's essentially saying, this guy's right out of Legends, they're practically gods.
Oh yeah, it is because then Cap says,
there's only one God and he doesn't dress like that. Exactly. But that's what I mean. So I think it's really interesting to see the parallels that are taking place, and another reason why I think he's going to be such a big part of these next few phases, which to me also makes sense. He brings that mystical aspect. I mean, Captain Marvel's she's got all the power. To me, okay.
She's space.
Yeah. But to
which
me,
is Thor.
I mean, I think it's hard because I don't think they're all the same, because if you think about it, if anything to me, and it's not just because they're both captains, I would think she's more Captain America. I know you don't like her.
It just
and I
pains me for you to, like, put her on the same level as, like, Steve Rogers.
But I see her even with the background, the military, where they rose out of everything. I mean, she went through a transformation just like Steve.
If you think about it, here's another parallel for you, and I hate to do this, but, like, he was the first Avenger, and the reason they're called the Avengers is because of her. So, like, in many ways, they laid the groundwork for everybody else.
And the reason the Avengers even happened was because of her.
Yeah.
So I definitely, like, see her. It's not so much the power so much as who, like, she is and her story. I definitely see her as more of the Captain America of the next three. I see Doctor Strange as, to be honest, more of the Tony figure.
Yeah, the sarcastic, incredibly
smart,
confident,
like, brilliant. I mean, he was a freaking surgeon before he
Not
became
even just
Doctor
a surgeon,
Strange.
He was a neurosurgeon.
Yeah, like, and then I see Shang-Chi being like Thor. He's got that, and that's why I think the comparison, especially to the hammer, is the most important to me, because the hammer wields power, and what do the rings represent? Yeah. And what do they wield? Power. And used in the right hands, they're really, like, I don't want to keep using the word powerful, but
they're very hard to match. It makes me wonder, and this is just a random thought, it makes me wonder, like, if Shang-Chi had the rings during the fight with Thanos, like, how would that have played out differently?
I bring you a new question. Are we to understand whether or not he was snapped? Are we to understand whether his father was snapped?
I can totally see that being taken care of in a throwaway line because it needs to be addressed.
Because if he's been gone for 10 years, he could easily have been living his life in San Francisco. And maybe that would explain part of the reason the 10 rings didn't seem to pop up recently, was maybe because their leader could have been snapped, for all we know.
Would the rings have gone with him? Real questions.
Everything that people were wearing seemed to have gone with them.
Does he wear them all the time, though?
I feel like for the most part he does, because I feel like when he's not wearing them, in the way of like, when he's not using them, they just fall as bracelets.
It's a question, I'm curious.
Because why would you take them off?
Okay.
Like, it's not like Thor's hammer where he's like the only one who could lift it for most of the time.
Yeah.
Well, the only other person just being Captain America. It's not like he's gonna be like, oh, bro, you're gonna smack me over the head with my own hammer. Like, anyone could literally take the rings. So I would assume he'd wear them.
Yeah.
I do hate that they keep, and I get why they changed it to bracelets, because the whole, like, rings, we kind of did something similar with the gauntlet. But I'm like, I hate calling it the 10 rings, and it's bracelets.
Yeah.
It's, like, kind of annoying. It's, like, a little pet peeve that I've created now in my own head since Shang-Chi, like, really started to pick up hype, and I've started to understand more about it. And then the first appearance of the rings that are actually bracelets, I'm like, okay, I get why, but also, ugh.
I just think the whole vibe of this movie is going to be so cool. Like, I am.
Bro, Aquafina
so
is in it. I'm such a fan of
love
Aquafina.
her.
She's so freaking funny to me.
She's great. And then I'm blanking on the actress's name, but the Nick's mom from Crazy Rich Asians is also in it. Why I really like that
Is
movie.
it the one who plays his mom?
Yeah.
Okay.
The one who like makes the main character's life really difficult. Yeah. I really love that movie, so I have seen it a few times. But
I'm saying she's the one who plays Shang-Chi's.
I don't think it's the mother.
Well, that's a new explanation. I want to understand where his mother is, because we do see her in a few clips.
Yeah. But I don't think that the woman from Crazy Rich Asians
I don't
his
know, because I
mother.
can't picture the one you're talking about from the movie. I can picture the Shang-Chi person I'm thinking of, but I don't know who you're thinking of from.
Right,
Crazy
she's
Rich
the one
Asians.
that Shang-Chi's father is fighting.
Oh.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, her. She's also in Crazy Rich Asians.
Which is a new explanation. What is that?
Yeah.
I'm trying to understand what's going on with, like, I guess the hardest thing is I don't really understand the plot. Like, I think what I get is, like, okay, he's in San Francisco. No, not that I don't understand the plot, because that doesn't I don't want to sound like I'm, like, degrading the movie, at all, because I'm not.
It's just hard to understand where it's going to build to, because they've hidden so much.
Yeah. Like, I get he's in San Francisco. Then he goes back home. But then at some point we see a lot of flashbacks.
Mm-hmm.
Of,
him being
like,
trained as a young adult.
But
or
also
child.
a lot of, like, war flashbacks that I don't assume are happening right now.
Yeah, no, the video that I was watching was saying that he thought that the father was kind of granted almost an immortality by the rings.
Well, I do believe one of the rings has something to do with...
I don't remember.
I think.
But, that he doesn't really age because of that, and so the flashbacks are actually showing him fighting throughout major wars in history because he's
Which makes sense.
that long. Yeah.
But I want to understand almost, like, what the importance of
what's
seeing
the point?
these.
Yeah. What purpose do they serve?
Unless they're just a part of the Ten Rings backstory. Like,
Yeah.
unless we'll have, like a little...
exposition.
Like, when they're talking about, well, the Ten Rings... Like, you know, they do it in a lot of the movies. If that's just kind of the appearance they make and then continue.
Yeah, I could see it being done as, like... Because obviously Katie doesn't know who Shang-Chi is.
I think he barely, like, tries to acknowledge that.
No, he's clearly hiding who he is.
Yeah.
And so, like, she clearly doesn't know, like, his real origin, so I could see it being done as, like, all my cards are on the table, this is who I really am, this is where I come from, this is the organization I was raised in, this is what's expected of me, I tried to get out, but, like, this is who they are. Like, I could see that being the plot device in which they kind of explain this organization to people who aren't as familiar and might not be, like,
I want to know why he turned bad.
Who?
His father. Shang-Chi's father. Because, I mean, you have this power, and I get power can get to people's heads, but I'm like, you had the ability to help people all the time, so I wonder what he... Like, I want to know what he's fighting for.
Power, money. He seems like one of those people who just... Oh, I will say, though, one of the things that he says, I think the father in one of the voiceovers is like, the 10 rings have given our family power for generations, and I know in Asian culture, like, the family and, like, the reputation of the family is really important, so I could see it being, like, him trying to uphold the family's, like, standing and reputation in society, because they do have these, like, super powerful, I don't want to call them tokens, but we'll just use that word for now.
Well, but I guess I'm also, like, a little interested in understanding why now? Why is he giving them up now? Because with the organization, all that comes the rings. Like and so obviously he hasn't aged in.
I wonder if because he's a mortal man and they're alien or not from around here.
Because isn't there the whole thing with the dragon?
Yeah, but I just wonder if perhaps like maybe it's not physically aging him, but it's draining him. Because again, like look at what happened when Tony tried to snap. Mortal humans, even whole humans using alien tech, it does not have the same effect on the body that it does on an alien who is perhaps built to wield something of that level of power.
Yeah. No, it definitely, like, makes sense. I just guess like I said, because of the lack of, like, diverse trailers, it's really hard to make full predictions past, like, honestly, I can make predictions more about the implications of the movie and what it might do than I can tell any of you listening what the movie itself is going to bring about. Which I think,
and we've talked about this, is very intentional. They're, for whatever reason, trying to hide the plot of this movie, whereas I think, and we've talked about, why this is different, but Black Widow was incredibly transparent. You knew she was going to take down the Red Room. Well, I mean, we definitely got some stuff wrong, but there was some...
I was like,
I mean, there was still some stuff that we could at least say with almost certainty, but I feel like that list is much smaller with this movie.
But I like it because...
No, it's not a criticism,
all of you listening,
it's an observation.
I know some of you are probably listening and thinking, wow, they've predicted close to nothing. But it's hard to make predictions off of very little material.
Especially when you're being shown the same 6 scenes cut differently over and over
exactly.
again.
Because... obviously, at one point, like, we see him fighting on the bus. Well, he's clearly fighting thugs that have to do with the 10 rings.
Yeah, that guy is actually, he has a name, and I can't think of his name.
But I know who you mean. The Striker or something like that.
Well, that's not his name, but
the one who
guy
has,
like, the blades for arms. But he's sent by the father.
Yeah. So I guess, like, then it's like, okay, well, where'd that come from? Because then we see him with his dad. We see him
and that guy's behind them.
Yeah, and we see him at the compound.
With the sister.
Like, we see him fighting multiple people. Like, obviously, he's not going to take up the whole organization thing. But I'm like, how do we end up
and then we see him fighting the father with the rings. Like, they're each almost taking half and fighting each other. Yeah. And you see this beautiful shot that's in almost all of the maybe 2/3 of the trailers, where the father has the rings and they're blue, and Shang has the rings and they're like orange, and it's
yellow.
Beautiful, and it's like,
but it's also
such
like
a gorgeous shot.
It's also not that I like the shot, but at the same time, I mean this in the nicest of ways, very unoriginal.
Oh, for sure. I mean, if you look at like half the Star Wars like posters, it's like the same thing.
Harry Potter, the whole like 2 wands. You got one side that's one color, like. It's very unoriginal.
Like, well, even just the color scheme, the blue and orange thing.
Yeah.
Like, I was looking at some video.
They kind of did it with Civil War a little bit.
Yeah. It's like it's like the same, like, color scheme over and over again. They, like, just kept overlaying movie posters that were, like, all the same. And there were, like, a bunch of Star Wars movies that were in there. And, like, I think Civil War might have been in there.
Probably, because it had that blue and red kind of aspect. Yeah. But I'm thinking specifically
I just think it's as unoriginal as it might be, it's still a beautiful shot, and I'm looking forward to seeing it, for sure.
No, I am too, and that's why, like, for me, I am excited for the movie itself, but I'm also very excited to see those implications of what comes further from it, because I know there's obviously so much more.
Well, I mean, just even if you think about it, take out Shang for a minute, which, like, obviously isn't the point, but just, like, now you're reactivating the 10 rings into, like, an actual active part of the MCU in a way they haven't been since they created Iron Man.
And even then, they were solely a plot device to make Iron Man.
Yeah. Now they're going to be actual players. They're potentially in bed with one of the biggest, dealers of black market goods potentially in the world, who now has access to the CIA.
Don't even get me started.
I know.
Between her and her aunt, I want to literally, like...
But yeah, so, I mean, I just think it's, even apart from how cool Shang is going to be as a character and his role moving forward, just even bringing in the 10 Rings organization, I think is going to be such an interesting experience, because I think I could see them rivaling Hydra in how much trouble they cause.
I also really think it's great because I think Shang-Chi is that perfect middleman between the on-the-ground fighting soldier and the mystic. Yeah. Because the rings itself are the mystic, but then you have the entire
martial art. But he doesn't need them to be a total, like,
he's an assassin.
Dude.
He's an assassin. So I think he brings up that Black Widow, Hawkeye, like, even the Captain America kind of aspect, and then you
elite fighter.
Yeah. And then you have the Doctor Strange and Wanda and Loki kind of aspect that comes out. That's like that perfect mix. And I think that's so critical because we are moving into such a cosmic and mystical phase of the MCU. I think it's so critical to have that little in-between guy because he, once again, wraps into people like the new Captain America and Sam Wilson, Bucky, the people who are still on the ground. The people who, at the end of the day...
But he's clearly also connected to Strange because Wong is there. So
but that's what I mean.
Yeah,
there's
so
like connections already.
Yeah, so he like is like clearly connected to like the mystical part already because obviously they put him Wong for a reason and like that goes without saying. And then he's like in this city that, oh, that's a coincidence. Like Bucky and Sam were there, like with our super dancer Zemo. Like that's like clearly not a coincidence.
Stop. All I keep thinking about is right after, what was it, like episode 4, I think, was the Mad Report episode. It was like 3 or 4.
I think it was 3.
And they sat there in that slow-mo walk when they walk into that back room, and people just kept making edits to the funniest songs. Like, not funny in, like, they were funny songs, but, like...
No, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah. There are some days I really love the internet, and the day after that premiered, that was one of them.
I literally couldn't breathe, because every song was just as good as the one before, and I just kept watching it, because I was like, all of these songs, this should have been what they played when they walked in, but they didn't, and it was kind of a disappointment. But yeah, no, that's my point, though. I think he's going to be this great middleman, and for him to be now part of the big 3 coming out, that's why I think he's also got that. He is, like, definitely a nice mix between the Thor and Captain America aspects.
But I mean, I like that comparison to Thor even more now, because Thor doesn't need the, I mean, that was the whole point of Ragnarok, the same thing. You know? He's a kick-butt warrior. Sans the hammer, sans Stormbreaker. Yeah. You know, even sans his thunder abilities, he can do some serious damage.
Don't even bring up the fact that, like, when he sits there and he'll fight and they'll headbutt him and he headbutts him back. Like, he does it to Iron Man. He does it in one of his other fights in, like, the first Thor. And I
love it. And then in that shot in Avengers when he does it to Iron Man, you see they, like, purposefully show you the dent in the armor, and I'm just like, this is fantastic.
And, like, when he, like, it's just, like, Iron Man headbutts him, and he just looks at him like, you really thought this would work, and headbutts him back, and I just was like, oh my god.
And you know how I feel about Captain Marvel and how she's, like, not my favorite, but
when she headbutts
the
them,
parallel of him headbutting her and her doing the exact same thing, same facial expression and everything, I was like,
to Thanos, and just
beautiful.
Was like, you're an idiot. Boom.
I know. Like, and his face of like, oh crap. That has never not worked before.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm just so excited for this movie. I'm really intrigued by it, and I'm ready to see it.
Okay, awesome. So I think we have pretty much talked about our predictions with the exception of one. With Black Widow, we gave our predictions for the mid and end credit scenes.
Oh my god, I didn't even think about any of this.
Some of them were more right than others. We kind of got the Hawkeye one a little bit.
Well, we knew it had to after Yelena was...
Yeah. So we were on the right track with that one. That kind of weird 2 weeks later thing that sort of counted as a mid-credit.
I don't count it. I refuse.
Yeah, that one kind of threw my prediction for a loop.
I refuse because it wasn't an end credit scene or a mid-credit scene. It didn't tell us new information.
Yeah.
So I don't count it.
But anyway, what do you think? Give me a mid and end credit scene.
Okay, well, I never took a moment to think about this.
I didn't either, so I'm coming in as completely blind too.
If I'm gonna be honest, what's coming up? Hawkeye, don't think it has nothing to do with Hawkeye. We've already gotten an end credit scene to deal with it. We've got enough information to set it up. I don't think it has anything to do with that. I just, and it's not because I don't think we've got anything to do with it. I just don't think we need more information for a show that has already gotten an end credit scene in the movie, and we've already gotten quite a few confirmations of things.
And to your point, we know more about Hawkeye, which is the second show coming out in the back half of the year, than we do about Ms. Marvel, which is coming first.
Why I'm gonna say one of them might have to do with that. I'm gonna say this. We either are gonna have a gasp moment with Shang-Chi, and it be something like
a great
Doctor Strange show.
Yeah.
Like something like that.
To come get Wong or something.
Yeah. That hooks us a little bit. Well, to be fair, he's also using a lot of mystical power. How that never came up on Doctor Strange's radar at all.
Well, yeah, because he makes a big deal about how he, like, knows all the big players. Like, how does he not know about Shang-Chi's dad? He doesn't,
because the 10 rings are huge. But anyway, so obviously, like, that to me would be something I think, because I feel like at this point, my deductions of a mid and end credit scene is, one typically has to do with the movie and the character.
Mm-hmm.
or at least one of the characters within it. So
Yeah.
even if it just means that Wong makes his little, like, and comes up to
Or
to Doctor
Abomination.
Yeah, but I'm only gonna say Wong because it helps to finally tie in Doctor Strange a little more, considering we've heard jack nothing about him since Endgame.
I understand your point. However, counterpoint, there is a She-Hulk show coming out next year.
Which, true.
So, like,
but my only thing
you
being, we're expecting Doctor Strange in Spider-Man. We're expecting him, and obviously, well, not expecting, he's guaranteed in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. He's in two of the biggest properties that are, other than Eternals, next to come up. And I think to not have something that, because Wong is finally that tying point, to use the Abomination rather than to use Wong, I think would be a mistake. Because I think you could definitely...
you have more opportunity to tie it, like, to tie in Abomination as one of the, like, non-movie related end credits. Like, you could, you know, for example, pull him into the Eternals as the, like, end credit scene where, like, something has to do with the Eternals or whatever, and, like, the mid-credit, I'm getting ahead of myself, just, like, as an example.
Yeah, but then have him, or... Because I don't think they'll hit too much more at anything with Spider-Man, because...
It's only first off away at that point.
Yeah, I was gonna say, first off, they come out right on top of each other.
Which is so strange.
I don't even want to talk about it.
Sorry for the hysterical laughter. We're just,
Marvel's,
like, uber stressed.
Marvel's scheduling abilities have not been up to par the past year.
Like, I, like, will die on my sword that Kevin Feige is the best planner that has ever graced this earth.
But the actual down to the calendar planning has not been ideal.
No, that has not been his strong suit this year. I think he's stumbled a few times, and, like, we've all had a tough year, so I get it, Kevin, but, like, I need you to get it together.
Yeah, it's been a little rough, but either way, I think the one that has to deal with the movie would either be, I think is gonna be some sort of Doctor Strange relation, because to my point, that's, you gotta tie it in.
Counterpoint to that, what if we get something with the Power Broker? That's the only other thing I think I could see it being, because she's already established.
But the only reason I say maybe not is because she was an end credit scene of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and that's how we found out she was, well, we knew she wasn't a good person, but that's how we found out she was, like, dirty. That's the counterpoint to your counterpoint, is that I do think that we've already seen that. But I'm gonna say that's one of them, and I don't know, that kind of ties into the possibility of, like, Spider-Man and all that, so that's kind of hard, because I think that's almost could be either of them. That could be the one that furthers us into a different show or movie, but also the one that could tie us right into the one we just watched.
I think it depends, like, if it is Shang meeting Strange, then I would count it as a mid-credit, because it's, like, him specifically, but if it's just Wong or Strange and
But maybe that would be where we get Abomination, because think about it, we could get the scene of, like, Wong, and because that still ties into the movie that we, and so does Abomination, but Abomination would go off into something completely new, because at this point, Shang-Chi and the Eternals, I say this with the best of my heart, because I'm excited for both of them, everyone just wants to get to Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's gonna have to make an appearance.
If I had to go for mine, I think, and I know I said this for Black Widow, but I really think this time we're gonna get something related to the Eternals.
Oh, I didn't even think about them. Yeah.
I guess because...
But they're a weird, character. I mean, I guess the Eternals as a group, I'll call them as a character. They're just weird to begin with. Yeah.
I just feel like, and I know that Shang-Chi didn't get his own end credit introduction. I think that part of that is a symptom of what's going on right now with COVID and everything just being a literal mess.
Well, I also don't know if they needed it. It was
I guess I just feel like coming in...
Because, like, I don't think they needed it, and I don't think they need it for the Eternals. The only reason they did it with Captain Marvel, who is the only one really recently who's had their
full cold open movie.
Yeah. But the only reason they kind of did it with her was because she then played such an important part in Endgame. So my only thought would be if they did it here, I would have to think that they play an important part in, like, the Multiverse of Madness. And I don't want to think about that.
I don't want to mix space.
No, I don't either. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to think about why they as characters, or how they as characters would mix into it. I don't want to think about it. But that to me would be the only reason I would see them getting an end credit scene that hints at them, is because they're going to play a bigger role past their, what is the word I keep trying to look for?
Their movie?
Yeah, but, like, their
introduction?
I guess. Their introduction movie.
Oh, their, Origin story.
Thank you. That's what I was looking for. I couldn't think of it.
It took me a minute to get there, but I got there eventually.
But past their origin story, I just don't, like, if they're going to play a bigger role later on, I don't think they need the end credit scene entrance, but if they're going to play a role in what we're about to see, which would not make sense to me, they would have an end credit role, to me, personally. That's how I view it.
That's fair. Okay, so I'm going to amend my prediction. I think the end credit scene is going to be Ms. Marvel, because I think that...
There's been nothing on her.
Yeah, we have... I think last week we got our first official still of her in the costume. Which, by the way, if we're going to talk comic accurate
as all heck, yeah.
Phase 4 is just plowing over 1 through 3.
COVID said, don't worry, we'll make sure the costumes get right.
Like, you may have had to wait an extra year for stuff, but, like, worth the wait just in costume accuracy alone.
I agree.
So I think we could see her, even if it's just a shot in her bedroom. Like, I think it's not going to be anything substantial.
But it'll be enough.
But because I guess I just feel like she doesn't have a trailer yet. She doesn't have anything. We've never seen her on screen officially.
No, I agree. I was going to bring up Miss Marvel as being a possible one as well.
I also...
That's why I think Wong or Something Was Strange will be the one that wraps into the movie, and then Miss Marvel will be the one that's a little out there.
Yeah, I think she's my end credit. My, like, second choice for end credit, and this is going to come out of left field, but I was reading something the other day, and Katie and I had been having this conversation, and I told her I thought Ms. Marvel was in the Multiverse of Madness. That is incorrect. She is not. At least to my knowledge, is not been confirmed. However, I did read that Miss America, America Chavez, Miss America is going to be in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. So I'm like, okay, cool. You have this character who's brand spanking new, has no movie credits. I mean, like,
so what is she going to come from another timeline?
I don't know. So I'm wondering, you know, instead of Ms. Marvel, do we get a trailer maybe in some point in the next, you know, just after Shang-Chi or just before Shang-Chi or something like that? Do we get a trailer for her show and they're just keeping it super under wrap? Like, we don't even have a start date, which is bizarre.
I don't like what's going on in Marvel.
It just
right
seems
now.
so haphazard.
Because other than Shang-Chi, things seem messy. We barely got a release date for Hawkeye. Like, we don't have a trailer for any of that yet.
No, nor Ms. Marvel, which comes out first and doesn't have a release date.
No. Yeah, we don't have a Spider-Man trailer. I understand COVID has partial issue with this. My only thing being, too, though, some of this stuff's been filmed. It has to have been.
The Eternals has to be done.
Hawkeye's definitely been done.
Yeah,
they've been filming
so
that for 9,000 years.
So is Spider-Man.
Well, the Multiverse of Madness, they've also been filming.
It's done. I'm pretty sure it's wrapped.
So it's like, I just am
Thor: Love and Thunder, I think, is wrapped.
Yeah.
Oh, no, because Christian Bale was just...
Yeah, I was like, no, wait.
No, that's May of next year, so they have plenty of time.
But that's my point, I guess. I'm just kind of getting, like, a little stressed out because Shang-Chi's the only thing that I have concrete to hold on to right now.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. But so, anyway, to recap, I could see it being a Ms. Marvel or Miss America.
I will agree with the Miss Marvel, definitely, because of her show.
Just because, again, we have literally no date, no trailer, nothing for her, which is stressing me out. And then in terms of mid-credit, I think I agree with you on some sort of Strange. I could see, Strange popping up.
Even if it's not him directly, there's a very clear reference.
Yeah, I could even see him popping
just the
up,
circle.
Maybe Wong was there doing surveillance and called him in, he came to come get him, or to rendezvous with him or whatever.
Well, he can also see into the future. Well, wait, he doesn't have
the time stone anymore, so.
Well, maybe somewhere in his future research, before he didn't have the time stone, he did see how some things were going to play out with Shang-Chi and his father. Obviously, I'm assuming Shang-Chi walks out of here with his 10 rings. That makes sense.
Ideally.
Yeah. I wonder if he needed to wait to intercept him until he had the rings.
Yeah, to, make sure he falls on the right side of good and evil.
Yeah. Because obviously he also can't take control of the rings when his dad's still using them.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, I definitely think, whether it's Strange rendezvousing with Wong, or
just making it some sort of an appearance in general, or reference to him.
He is the master of the mystic arts. So, yeah, that's what I'm going to go with. We will see, in a couple weeks, how we fared. We did okay on our credits last time.
We weren't completely inaccurate on Black Widow.
No. So we'll see. I'm excited. It'll be fun. I'm just... thrilled to go back to the movies. I don't get to go see it Thursday, neither do you this time, which is really throwing us both. There were some limited showings this time.
I have a very limited amount of showings.
So do I, which is annoying. And frustrating, because we usually don't have to worry about spoilers, because we're, like, first in line.
I don't think we'll be worrying about that, though. But I definitely think that should just about wrap up some of our big predictions, because like I said, I think the trailers are a little difficult to make really detailed predictions with. I think you can really only make the broad stroke ones, so I think we did it.
Yeah. Like we normally do, a quick update on what's coming up. Our next show will be back out in 2 weeks, where we'll be kind of breaking down Shang-Chi, our thoughts, what it might mean, its ramifications. That'll probably come out Saturday or Sunday of
because
opening
to
weekend.
our point, we won't be seeing it till Friday night.
Can't come out on Friday morning if we haven't seen it yet, friends. Sorry. So that'll be coming out in 2 weeks. That'll be the next episode. As always, please remember to subscribe to the blog if you haven't already, and the podcast if you haven't already, to get notifications for when our episodes do air, depending on your platform of choice. We also do some extra predictions and extra breakdowns on the blog, which provides some additional information should you be looking for that. So please make sure to follow and subscribe to both of those.
And also check out our Twitter. It is Let's Talk MFT, and I almost always forget that. So I want to make sure I say it correctly. But make sure to check it out. Follow us, talk to us, tweet at us, whatever you want to do. We really like to also share some theories that we've either brought up in the podcast on there, or just some that maybe we've thought of since.
And if you have theories that you're seeing that we're not talking about, please let us know.
Yeah, especially, I monitor the Twitter, daily, so you tweeted us, we're gonna see it. So if you want us to touch on something, or bring it up, or you want to have a conversation. Or
if you have a show idea that you want us to delve into deeper, please let us know.
This is for you guys too. Yeah, but especially for any theories on something that's coming up recently that we really have not touched on, I'm happy to start a massive Twitter thread if need be and talk about it. And, like I said, a part of that's just interacting with all of you guys. So make sure to go follow that. And to Taylor's point, check out the rest of the podcast, check out the blog. And with all of the content coming out, including Shang-Chi, What If, and everything that is...
Hopefully some trailers, fingers crossed.
Everything that is so far still slated to come out this year, because it will be a busy next 4 months.
Oh my god.
I think we will be seeing something at least once a week. So don't get stressed about that. But
we'll do all the stressing for you.
Yes. But do watch everything and keep up with everything that Marvel is coming out with, because Marvel definitely just blew your mind. So let's talk about it.